Hello, beautiful mamas and dads. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a beautiful guest. Miss Paula is with us. Paula is a really special person. She is an early childhood educator turned mama, turned sleep and well-being specialist. And we connected on the social, but she did so much for us and our family when Naya was about 5 months old. She was like such a godsend because sleep is not my area of expertise. And so it was so nice to have someone who is so well versed, who understands the bigger picture, who really knows that all of us are doing a beautiful job and that there's not a one size fits all, especially in the sleep department, to give me context and the light at the end of the tunnel during like the most trying days. So
Yeah.
Paula is here. Paula, introduce
you.
yourself to our new viewers so they can learn more about you.
Hi, everybody. Well, you did such a great job introducing me. I feel so honored. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much my story. My name is Paula. I went off on mat leave with my son 2 years ago. He's just over two now. And, like many of you, many parents, I found myself bombarded with sleep information and, all of these things and things that I was supposed to do and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and all of that. And, feeling a lot of it wasn't aligned with who I wanted to be as a parent. And so, I was one of those, there has to be a better way. And I found this program that coaches, sleep coaches. Basically, our approach is to not use sleep training, but it's also not wait it out, right? It's that in between of let's support families because sleep is challenging for families without telling them, well, the only option you have is to leave your baby to cry. So that's where I sit. And I'm also just a huge advocate for respectful, responsive parenting. And I believe that carries into how we are with our children at night. It's all connected, right? It's not two different parts of parenting.
Absolutely.
So that's that.
Yeah. And we're really excited because today we're going to bust 3 really common myths. So Paula and I were talking, like, there are a lot of myths surrounding sleep and parenting and what's good and what's not good. And so we just wanted to like pick 3 that we think are going to be most impactful and helpful for you to take on your journey as your little one grows and develops and evolves and sleep patterns change. So without further ado, Paula, kick us off with the first myth when it comes to sleeping, baby sleeping.
Yeah. So I think the very first thing is the idea that all babies kind of fit the same schedule and they need the same amount of sleep. And so there's one right way. I see this causing so much anxiety for parents because they're like, well, why isn't my kid sleeping the way they're supposed to? Right. And all babies are so different. I get this question often when people are kind of new to my page. They'll be like, hey, do you have a schedule for a 6-month-old? And I'm like, actually, I don't do schedules. I will never hand you a schedule and be like, this is what your 6-month-old should be doing. Unless I know your child and your family and I work with you. So the reason for that is, kids have different sleep needs to begin with. So within that, that's kind of the big myth as well, is that all kids need a certain amount of sleep, but there's a wide range. Some kids, some babies will be fine with 12 hours in a 24-hour period, whereas another baby the same age might need 15 hours. And you think that's a 3-hour difference. That's a lot, and so it just breeds into all of these other things. The other common one within that is people get really stressed about short naps, right? And so I had a cat napper, and I remember just looking at these baby schedules that he was supposed to be following, and they always had like a 2-hour nap. And I was like, how am I supposed to make him sleep for 2 hours? Yeah. And it wasn't right for him. He would sleep for 30 minutes, wake up happy, have a good night. Like, he did not need that. And so this idea that all babies need to fit into this one way of doing things, I think is super detrimental because it affects our mental health, because we're inevitably going to fail when we don't meet those goals. and that affects baby. And then it's just, we're spending all this time forcing our babies to sleep when really they don't need to sleep. They'll tell you if they need more sleep.
Exactly. No, I love that so much. And I wish I would have had this information with Kai, because he too was a cat napper, and really you spend so much time thinking you're doing something wrong and fighting them. And it's like, no, go back to sleep. They're like, no, I'm good. Truly. Like, do you see this? I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know? And like, put that
like,
kid over there
play.
for 2 hours, you know? And so I just think that it's so important to have this information. And even, you know, me being in the realm of child development, I did not have this information. So I can only imagine how many parents will feel that sense of relief knowing like it's normal and it's okay. There's nothing wrong if your child takes short naps, you know?
No.
That 3 hour difference we're talking about makes, like, if you have a kid that sleeps 12 hours in a 24-hour cycle versus 15 hours, that 3 hours is probably the difference between your 20-30 minute nap and your 2 hour nap per kid, you know? And it's normal. It's all
right.
Normal.
Right. Yeah. Or, you know, then you might be coming in, it just goes into so many different things. But for example, another common struggle people have is their kid will start having split nights. And that's when they're awake for 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night. Right. And oftentimes, not every single time, but a lot of the time when this happens, it has to do with scheduling, and the child might be having too much daytime sleep, right? And so the parents like, but they're sleeping 2 hours during the day, like, isn't that what they're supposed to be sleeping? And it's like, yeah, but that's not necessarily what your child needs. And now, you know, you're putting them to bed at 7 p.m. and waking them up at 7 because that's, again, what you've been told is the norm. But your child already got their 2 hours of sleep during the day and they only need 12 hours. Well, they're going to have a break in between because they're like, I'm not tired. Like, I don't need that much sleep, right? So it you know, it's like a lot of math there. But the point is to say that however much your child is sleeping, unless there's like actual health issues, and that's a whole nother thing, but however much they're sleeping is however much they need to sleep. As long as you're setting the stage and allowing them the space, and you have a safe space for them to sleep, they will sleep as much as they need to. So you don't need to stress about them not sleeping enough. I think that's the biggest thing. And you know, there's a lot of stuff around it. People are like, well, sleep is so important for development and for brain development. And yes, that is very true, but it's not like forced sleep, right?
Right, exactly. That's so important. Thank you for pointing that out, because there's a lot of us out here that are like, is this normal? Is this right? So it's
huge. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's all of parenting.
Exactly. All of us.
All of us. Yeah. You get it from the OT side, I'm sure. That's it's right. Like, are they supposed to be crawling by now?
Exactly. And the range, right? The range of normal. It exists in all realms and all spaces. So. Okay, so would you lead us into myth number 2?
Yeah, so the next myth is the idea that sleep begets sleep. And I think, you know, this really kind of ties into myth number 1, but the idea of overtiredness, and you hear this a lot. And it's not to say that it's not real. It can, for some kids, they can get into a cycle of overtiredness, right? So they had a bad nap and then they have another bad nap and they're just kind of like so tired that what happens is cortisol builds up in their brain. And so then when they go to sleep at night, because they're so stressed from the lack of sleep, then they might be waking up a little bit more and all of that. So that is a thing, but it gets overemphasized in the sleep world, especially when you're talking to sleep consultants and such. And so again, it comes back to them then saying, well, your baby needs to sleep more. If they sleep more during the day, then they'll be able to sleep at night, right? And then you start with sleep training, but like nap sleep training. That's another thing that happens that people do. So again, it goes back to the same thing with scheduling, is that it's not every baby's the same and not every baby needs the same. And wakes at night, like this is the biggest thing I can tell you guys. Wakes are normal. Mm-hmm. Everybody wakes at night, adults included. I think most of us have gone in. I know I went into parenthood thinking like, by the time I have a 6-month-old, they'll be sleeping through the night and I'm going to be good. If you have a 2-year-old who's not sleeping through the night, you are 100% normal.
Yeah.
This is totally, totally normal. And, there's a million reasons why babies wake at night, right? Like they wake because they're hungry and they're tired and they're tired. They're overtired. They wake because they're hungry. They wake because they're uncomfortable, they're cold, they're too hot, like they have an itch, right? Like imagine you wake up and you have an itch that you can't scratch. Like what are you going to do? You're going to call for your parents, right? So this idea that if your child is waking at night and you've done something wrong, it's so detrimental, I think, to parents, because again, you haven't done anything wrong.
That piece right there was everything in our like conversations that we had, because Kaya continues to wake. And maybe this is something you could touch on too, is like the range of the number of wakes in a night that's normal, because she's still, she's a tosser and a turner, and she's still waking maybe 3-4 times in the night, and she's now in the bed with us, but it's like she just, she's switching position. She's getting uncomfortable. Like you said, maybe the temperature changes. Sometimes I notice when the air kicks off and it gets a little warm, she's awake, so just highly sensitive.
Lots of things. Yeah. So 3 to 4 weeks is normal. How old is she now?
She'll be 10 months in 4 days.
So cute.
She'll be 10 months by 10 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's totally normal for that age. And there's another thing to mention there is when you're bed sharing, you do tend to be more aware of their wakes. So it's not to say that necessarily they are waking more, but rather that you're more aware just because you're right there, right? True. So are they quick wakes where she's kind of maybe having some milk or doing something and then going back to sleep?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm up and I need a whole new routine to go back down. It's like I'm unsettled.
Exactly.
Let me have a little contact. So to me, it feels like awake because then my brain's like on, but for her, it's probably happening in the span of a couple of minutes before she's back to sleep. So that's a very good point.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And that's part of why I ask, because I always, that's why when people say like, how much should my kid be waking up? It's so hard to say because it depends on your child and what are the wakes looking like? Are they waking up screaming like, oh my God, I'm in pain? Or are they waking up and staying up for 2 hours? Or, like things like that. Whereas if they're just quickly turning around and needing a cuddle, or they just need a little bit of breast milk, that's super normal. So in terms of what would be like excessive is anytime we see a child that's waking up hourly, it could be like, either again, if they're screaming or things like that, but hourly wakes are not normal. So that would mean your child is not connecting any sleep cycles. And usually that has to do with discomfort. And that's another really important thing to note is that, if your child is waking up excessively, it's not because you haven't taught them how to sleep. There's something going on. They're trying to tell you something, right? It might be digestive issues. It can be airway issues. It can be body discomfort. Like there's so many things that go into sleep. And that's why part of the role that I do and other holistic coaches like myself is we take a look at all areas of your little one's life to make sure that everything is running smoothly and there isn't something that's preventing them from being able to sleep.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Including sensory, which that would be your area of expertise, but that's another thing people, most of us don't realize is how much sensory affects sleep. And of course it does, because it's like how you relax your body.
Exactly. How you take in the world, exactly how you regulate, all of it. Very. There's a million and one reasons. And that's why we have you, because then you go through and you dissect and you figure it out for us. So grateful to have you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So we've got one more big myth.
Yeah.
Share it with us.
The last one, and I've kind of alluded to this a couple of times, but it's this idea that we need to teach our babies to fall asleep independently in order for them to be able to connect sleep cycles, right? And the way that there's so many different ways that this is kind of put out to people, but the biggest one I hear is, imagine your baby fell asleep on their bed and they woke up on a park bench, they're going to be super confused. Like that's kind of when I hear a lot, right? And so therefore you shouldn't nurse them to sleep or rock them or do any of these bad habits, quote unquote, because then they're going to wake up and they're going to expect that every single time, right?
Right.
This is not true.
Right.
It's just not true. If your child has ever slept 2 hours straight, they have connected a sleep cycle, right? Like an infant sleep cycle is 45 minutes to an hour. So they are able to go from one sleep cycle to the next, so long as they're in a space that they're comfortable in, that they feel safe in, etc. And all their needs are met, right? And again, like we said, they have so many needs at night. So when they're waking up and crying for you, it's not because you haven't taught them how to self-soothe. It's because they have a need. And again, it could be something as simple as they have an itchy, tag on their clothing. And it's hard as parents because we don't know. We're like, why are you upset? I can't figure you out, right? But they can't help themselves, right? So when we wake up at night, I know, if you've ever been pregnant, you wake up a ton, you got to go pee all the time, right? You go get a glass of water. Maybe you turn your pillow to the cold side, right? Like we all do these things. We don't even think about it because we just do it. But the baby can't do that. The baby has to call you for every single one of those. So again, if you never teach your baby, again, because you can't really teach a baby to self-soothe. But if you never do that, they will sleep through eventually. They will connect sleep cycles. They will sleep longer. And I can attest to that. I have a child who sleeps through, from usually 8 p.m. He goes to sleep till 5 a.m. So he, it's not the longest stretch, but he sleeps through.
Yeah.
And he's never been sleep trained. He's nursed to sleep as a 2-year-old. Like he does all those things, but he doesn't need me now anymore at night, right?
Figure it out.
That came with time, know. And it's not to discount how difficult it is for parents, you guys. Like it's really difficult, and none of this is ever to shame or make anybody feel bad about it. And if you're struggling with sleep deprivation, that is, it's a real thing, and we need to figure out other ways to support you. But I think so much of what I see in my work with clients is that the sleep deprivation is one thing, but the shame and the anxiety around having a kid who doesn't sleep like they should is another thing that adds to that anxiety and all of that. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
totally makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge weight, and whether we're conscious of it or not, it's like, it's in our nature to compare, to look around to other people, other friends and their kids, and establish, or try to establish, like, is my child, are we doing this right, quote unquote, right? Like, is this right? Is this normal? And I think one of the biggest takeaways from Paula, and even the content that you might consume on my channel, is the range of normal is big. There's not just one right way to do something. That it's this, there's a spectrum of normal.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it is. And that's so powerful once you understand that, right? And again, like if you go look up online, they'll tell you, like, at this age, your child should be taking this many naps and these things. And it changes so much from child to child. Like, you'll have kids who, I've seen kids at 11 months, they need to be on one nap only. And other kids will go until 18 months before they need to be on one nap. And the range from when they drop their naps altogether is huge as well, right? So there's so many different things that are so different. And you'll see this more with parents, more that they'll start to see the difference, that even their two kids don't sleep the same. I don't know if you saw that with your little ones.
Yeah, they are very different. Naya is a more solid napper than Kai is, for sure.
Okay.
They both wake in the night. I want to say Naya's at night a little more active than Kai. But yeah, very different, and if that's the beauty too of doing it the second time, is you have a little bit of hindsight and you understand, like you said, the kids turn out okay. Let me just breathe through this, even though it is a challenge. As you said, sleep deprivation is real. but you have that, like, I made it through once. This child is going to be okay. We're just going to
Yeah.
figure this out and we're going to breathe through it. Yeah.
And you can plan accordingly. And obviously not everybody has that privilege, but if you are able, like if you have a partner who's supportive, like you say, hey, you know what? Like, I know that first year is going to be really tough. How can we work this out? Can we have shifts where one of us wakes up with the child, right? How can I get some time during the day or in the mornings to sleep in while you take care of the kids? Or all like brainstorm different ways when we kind of can accept that our babies are going to be who babies are. Like, then we can manage our life around it. But if we have these expectations that are unrealistic, and unfortunately that's what we're told, it's not like it's our fault for thinking that, then yeah, we set ourselves up for failure. And
Such a good point.
sadly our society isn't set up to support mothers, especially in the States where you have very little maternity leave. And it's, so my heart goes out to all the moms that are struggling, or the single mothers. And there's just, it's tough. So I want to acknowledge that. But yeah, if you're able to kind of set yourself up for success in that way, that's really crucial. And, bed sharing can be a really helpful way as you're doing, which is probably, that's a whole other video, but
I know we have a whole nother segment on it, which maybe we will, because
whole other video. Yeah. If people want it. Let us know.
Let us know. You can drop it down in the comments below, because it is interesting and it has made a big difference for us and our family. And talk about like stigma, shame, all the other things, and of course you do need to be safe, but it relieved a lot of stress and a lot of just
so much.
Yeah, it protected my mental health and ultimately everyone else's mental health to make that swap. So if you guys are interested in that, let us know. You can drop a comment.
Yeah,
maybe we'll
I would love to get into that. That's so fun. But just know that it can be done safely.
Yes.
And if anything, we'll drop some resources for that. If people need that, because I just want people to have the information, and we need to make informed decisions as parents. We need to have all the information in front of us so we can make those choices, rather than be told there's one way and that's it. This is the way you do things. It doesn't work out.
It's like you said, sets a lot of people up for failure when we adopt that. So
oh god, so I mean, I have a million other myths, you guys, like there's a lot.
If you guys are loving this, just let us know, and I would love to invite Paula back. And
that would be so great.
So many paths we can take with this content, but we wanted to do this one in a semi bite-sized digestible piece, but let's do it again, Paula, if she's open to it.
Anytime. Of course. Anytime. I love chatting with you. This is so great.
I learned something new. Paula, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, follow you, learn more about you and your beautiful work?
Thank you. Yeah. So my Instagram handle is Paula Morales McDowell, and I'm sure we'll have that in the description because it's a little long. I just recently changed it. My business name was New Paradigm Motherhood, and I'm in the process of changing that. So you can find me there and at newparadigmmotherhood.com. And so I do one-on-one coaching for families, and that's where I do a lot of that digging and figuring out what's going on with your little one and helping families create a plan. And then I also have a couple of courses. I have one on night weaning. I have one on independent sleep from bed sharing. So that's kind of my most popular one, because a lot of bed sharing parents are like, okay, this is great, but now how do I get them in their own space, right?
Really good. Yeah.
So I've got one of those, and I do webinars regularly as well. So you guys can check that out. And and I'm very active on Instagram. So DM me, message me, check out. I have so much information in my stories and saved highlights and all of that. So definitely be sure to check that out.
Yes. And again, I'll link everything in the description box for you guys to make it easy so you can follow her and learn more about her. Miss Paula,
Yes, thank you. Oh, one more thing. Sorry.
No, go for
Sorry
it.
to interrupt you.
No, go.
I also have a podcast, and it's called the Way We Parent podcast. And I'm going to have a wonderful guest, Nekole, on my podcast. So, you guys be sure to check that out. Yeah. So I talk, my podcast isn't so much sleep related, but it's really just conscious, respectful parenting and all of that. So if that's your jam, then be sure to check it out.
Yes, we will link that below as well.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again for watching this video. Paula, thank you for coming on and sharing your beautiful expertise with us. Thank you for helping us and our family. She's great. She's so knowledgeable. She's so compassionate. Highly recommend. And maybe we will see you again for a part 2.
That'd be fun. Yeah, anytime.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.